Does Allah know everything? Does fate exist? If Allah sealed my fate and already knows everything, why am I responsible for my deeds? Don't we have free will? These are some of the most frequent questions asked by people. We will answer these very clearly in this video, inshallah. Let's start. Does fate exist? Fate basically means that Allah knows the past, present and future in every detail. Let's say we encounter someone who has never seen the sea before. If we tell him that there are some creatures living underwater, it will be quite difficult for him to understand because we are telling him about an environment which is way different from his own. In fact, we are just like that guy in the comparison. We also find it difficult to understand the concept of timelessness as we live in time. And it may be a little difficult to understand that Allah is timeless and knows the future. Just as an engineer who invented a phone isn't dependent on the rules inserted in the phone, likewise, Allah isn't dependent on the rule of time which is established for the universe. We cannot expect Him to be limited by a rule which is set up Himself. That is to say, the concept of future time which applies to us cannot be applied to the exalted being of Allah anyway. Then, it's logically certain that Allah knows all times and the future. Fate, which expresses Allah's knowledge of all past and future events, is of course true and it does exist. Well, if Allah knows the future, does it mean that I have no free will? Are we like puppets? In fact, everyone knows the existence of free will easily. You freely chose the clothes you wear today, right? Nobody forced you. Even when we look at biology, we can see the existence of willpower. We define striated muscle and smooth muscle systems as systems that work on will and without will. For example, the arm and leg muscles are the striated muscle. It works with our will. But our internal organs are smooth muscles, which means they work without our will. In short, we know the existence of free will in many ways, conscientiously, logically, biologically, etc. In fact, the basic problem is we don't have enough information about fate. Fate is basically divided into two: forced fate and voluntary fate. Forced fate is what Allah determines without our will interfering. For example, being born as a boy or a girl, who your parents are. These are all the concerns of forced fate. Voluntary fate is the actions that we freely commit. For example, consider an elevator. You do not know the rope systems of the elevator or the details of the machine, etc. There is no intervention of your will here. But when you are in the elevator, going to the 7th floor or the descending to the -7th floor is up to you. While there is a masjid on the 7th floor, there is a casino on the -7th floor. You choose which floor you wanna reach. Just like this example, it wasn't us who determined our features such as our gender, and we are not responsible for them anyway. But just as we determine which floor we will go to in the elevator system, we freely choose the actions we do in this life and we are responsible for them. So we have to know that fate is basically divided into two, and there is voluntary fate and we are responsible for it. What is my fault if Allah has already written my destiny? Now we came to one of the most important points. The key sentence is, knowledge is dependent on the known. For example, let's say you are on a mountain and two trains come to each other on the rail below. You observe this and write on a piece of paper that these trains will collide in 8 seconds, and indeed trains collide after 8 seconds. Now, can people come and say, the train collided because you wrote it on paper, you are the culprit? Of course no. Since you wrote it on paper, the trains did not collide. You knew that the trains will crash, so you wrote it on paper. Just like this example, we do not commit sins just because Allah knows. Allah knows that we will sin and writes accordingly. If we can know that trains will collide with our limited knowledge, of course Allah knows what we will do with His infinite knowledge. But as we said, Allah's knowing depends on what we do. It does not destroy our will. Knowing and doing are different things. For example, the sunrise time is written on the calendar. Is the sun rising at that hour because it's written on the calendar? Of course no. Since the sun rises at that hour, it's written on the calendar. In other words, the existence of information on the paper already depends on the sun. Likewise, the fact that our knowledge is written in our destiny is already because we do them. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel and follow our upcoming videos. Inshallah we can reach people who are in search together. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.